Hey everybody, this is Perch. Nothing wrong with a little nostalgia. I like it when people write in telling me some of their favorite storylines that they've had from years past in comics. So it's an open invitation. What are some of your favorite storylines? What are some of the stuff you remember fondly? There's a lot during kind of this Batman era of No Man's Land and some of those others that people really enjoy, and it's still kind of it's they're brought the memories of those things are brought back. So here's a reader who's writing in and kind of both professing their love for a storyline and also defending it a little bit. I don't think you need to defend it a little bit, but let's go into it. What we've got here. It says, "Hey Perch, recently I listened to the video on events that you did with Joe Corallo. When discussing events, you both agreed that neither of you cared for Batman Knightfall. I'd like to offer an alternative perspective on that story, as I believe I'm coming from a different place than many." I'll pause here for a second. I'm not sure that you are. I think that Nightfall is remembered fairly decently by people. It wasn't, I didn't enjoy it. In terms of kind of a big status quo change, there are a number of aspects. I liked a lot of the events before and after more. Now, in hindsight, I'll take Batman Nightfall over a lot of the shit that's gone on over the last 10 years. So, I mean, if we're going to get the saga of Batcat or Batman Nightfall, sign me up. Break that back over and over and over again. Anyway, we'll go back to the mail. I won't interrupt. So it says, well, I can't promise that. See, I was born the same year Nightfall happened, 1993, and I asked, God, that makes me feel old. And I absolutely loved the story. I didn't even make it through one sentence. The entire saga, the Prelude, Nightfall proper, Night Quest, Night's End, Prodigal, and Traoka. Since I did not grow up reading the comics of this era, I experienced this story as one long narrative in collected editions. I didn't collect floppies or follow the events as they were happening, given that, well, I was an infant. That's no excuse. Read comics. No, I'm kidding. Thus, my first time reading and collecting experience with Nightfall is very different to those who read the story as it came out. Nightfall, to me, was an incredible story, a long, sprawling epic that I thought told a great story and said something powerful about Batman. The collected editions I have contained some introductory material that described how this event was a response to a lot of the trends in early 90s comics. The Dark Age, in the wake of landmarks like Watchmen and Dark Knight Returns, when anti-heroes were all the rage and everything was spiky and edgy. Nightfall was all about defending the traditional Batman, the Batman of Dennis O'Neil, against a critique that the character needed to evolve with the times and become more like 90s anti-heroes of the day. Understandable, given how Batman's world became a lot darker in the late 80s with stories like Year One, The Killing Joke, and Death in the Family. Could the traditional Batman survive in this more brutal and darker age of modern comics? Wow, that's a hell of a good paragraph you got there. Good for you. We're going to keep going, but that bears some examination later. I think that's really well said. So thank you. You made the audience smarter, and you did it with me having to do no work other than read your mail. So that's perfect. Proving once again that the viewers of this show are brighter than the host. I loved the Vengeance of Bane one-shot that begins the story. It made me love Bane as a villain, and now I find every adaptation of the character to be a disappointment. Well, that's fair. I love the gradual, slow build-up as we see Batman get worn down, Arkham unleashed, this Joker and Scarecrow team up, and finally Bane breaking the bat both physically and mentally. I thought it was fascinating to see how the world of Batman and Gotham changed with Azrael under the cowl. I enjoyed seeing Tim Drake forced to work on his own after Azrael kicks him out of the Batcave. I found the climax and resolution with Azrael to be very dramatic and satisfying, as Bruce Wayne has to use his compassion, not violence, to defeat Azrael and retake the mantle, proving why Bruce is the true Dark Knight. I love the epilogue arc Prodigal for two major reasons. One, I got to see Nightwing become Batman, and two, the story concludes with one of my all-time favorite Batman moments, the moment where Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson finally mend their long-standing rift. I'm a sucker for Batman and Nightwing father-son stories, and this one is probably my favorite. Okay, in fairness, see, so you're selling me on this story. I did not enjoy Nightfall, but hearing this, what's going through my head is like, God damn it, I need to read that again. That does good. I do remember the reconciliation between Bruce and Dick, and it was very well done. There's a lot of, I don't know, it was a moment. It kind of reminds you of a wrestling moment where, the two heroes or the two good guys, the faces, they finally they come to the ring and they've earned each other's respect, and so they one extends the hand and the other one's like looking at it, not sure, and then finally they shake hands and the crowd goes wild. It had that feeling to it, and it was a good moment in comics. Now, back to the mail. There are certainly things I'm critical of. The story has its 90-isms, including ridiculous D-list villains like Metalhead. Yeah, that's right. Or a silly Rocky IV robot Bane uses to attack Arkham Asylum. I thought Azrael defeated Bane way too early in the story. I totally agree with that. That was one of the big worst parts. Azrael's time as Batman definitely feels dragged out in parts, although I understand why the story does it. It's to show why you don't want somebody like Azrael to be Batman. Azrael's bat suit gets more and more ridiculous as the story progresses, but again, I understand precisely the point. Finally, the way Batman's back is healed is admittedly pretty lame. Well, yeah. Again, in hindsight, I mean, you know, these recoveries in comics are not masterpieces. We'll just put it that way. Nevertheless, I appreciated the story, that this story made what I felt was a powerful statement about who Batman is, and perhaps more importantly, what he is not. Batman should not be some borderline insane, murderous, edgy lone wolf like Azrael. Despite all of his brooding, Batman is a hero. He wages his mission against crime with the help of his allies in order to prevent the tragedy that befell him as a child from ever happening to anyone else. That's who Batman is. The classic Dennis O'Neil Batman, at least, and frankly, I feel Batman's stories in more recent times have lost sight of this, and therefore I believe the message of Nightfall is still relevant today. These are just my honest thoughts. Thank you for taking time to read my perspective. Well, hell, well done. I mean, what? Can't argue with that. I mean, you bring up a lot of good points, and I think definitely you need to go revisit Nightfall, and I'm curious to get Joe Corallo, you know, who was in that video with me. Hopefully he's listening to this. He can give his take on that. I think that's a powerful argument. But you mentioned something there, which is one of my favorite storytelling aspects of comics, and that is the comic that it's the hero's journey in the sense that we're reminded of who the core of the hero is. We're reminded at what the hero stands for, what their true, what truly motivates them, what is the essence of the hero, and we're reminded why nobody can step into that cowl, right? Why not just anyone can step into that costume. They don't do many stories like that today. And one of the reasons why, I think, is that all kinds of people are stepping into the costume. I mean, it goes, forget about the legacy swap and the racial swaps and all that kind of stuff that tends to distract people. One of the cool aspects about comics is when you have an iconic hero and you show why that hero, that person, those experiences make up who that character is, and nobody else can be that character. That character is unique. And I think that uniqueness is incredibly powerful. You know who I'd love to talk to about this, if I could, quickly dial in somebody? It's Jeff Thorne. And Jeff Thorne, of course, recently did that Green Lantern series. We have done a few live streams together. I always love talking with Jeff. But one of Jeff's points that he's made before, and he's in interviews and other things, is that heroes should be unique. That you shouldn't have mantle swap after mantle swap after mantle swap. That you should have, uniqueness to these characters. Uniqueness matters. And when you water it down, when you have 50 different members of the Flash family and 5,000 Green Lanterns and 18 Supermen and 50 Batmen and like all this kind of stuff, it erodes a real value of that character. And I think this mail and your reflection on Nightfall really captures what that value is. That value is really, in Batman's case, it's that, he is the Dark Knight. There were a lot of broody, kind of edgy 90s type tropes that were going on with the comics you mentioned. And there was that question of, does he need to adapt? Is he too folksy? Is he too, and you hear that going on right now with the movies of a lot of these characters are cheesy. They're corny. They don't work in 2022. We have to update them. We have to modernize them. Well, no, you maybe don't. Actually, not maybe you don't. You definitely don't. The attempts to modernize these characters strips away the unique, incredible value that they have. And that value is worth something. If, certainly in memories and great storytelling, but from a purely capitalist perspective, to the companies, it's worth money. Batman has endured because who Batman is. Changing up Batman by saying, hey, oh, it's the '90s. Let's give him some spikes on his shoulder pads, and let's have him, just be more violent, and just fuck it, have him start killing people. Why not? That kind of stuff peels away at who Batman, at who that core character is. Now, there's nothing saying you can't make a new character that does all those things, and that's what readers want. But taking away the essence of a hero, which, by the way, has often very little to do or nothing to do with gender or skin color. It has to do with the personality of the actual character themselves. We could argue on social media about Jace Fox being Batman and everything else, but perhaps the biggest rejection of I am Batman, Jace Fox Batman, is not the fact that he's black. It's sort of the fact that he's not Bruce Wayne, because Bruce Wayne is that character, but because Bruce Wayne has a set of personality tropes and types and a guiding motivation that makes him who he is. And to just say, hey, here's somebody else who does things differently and buy it, that's not Batman. Just like Laura Kinney is not Wolverine. It irritates everybody. I get it. I get that Jerry Duggan and others are writing, and they put in the comics like, you have the name, you're the Wolverine now. Yeah, you could say that all you want. But the reality is Logan, the character who has been around since the 70s, who, even though it's changed costumes, they devolved, Wolverine in his worst, poorest selling moments were when they deviated from the character too much. When they gave him hot burning claws, when they gave him suddenly devolved into some kind of caveman type creature, when they made him a servant of Apocalypse. Those moments, all Wolverine's sales suffered during those moments. Wolverine being who he was, even when he took on the patch identity in the Wolverine solo series, it's still he was still himself. He had a disguise on, but it was still he was driven by the same motivating factors. The personality was the same. That's Wolverine. Not the fact that he has a dick, not the fact that he's white or Canadian or any of these surface traits. The problem that Laura Kinney's going to have with Wolverine is Wolverine as a character has been built up to be a very specific thing. You can give her the same name, but fundamentally she is a different character, and there's nothing wrong with that. Anyway, sorry, I went off track a little bit, but thank you very much for the mail. I appreciated it. I really appreciated kind of laying out why you like Nightfall, and you sold me. I'm going to have to go back, read that comic again, and remind myself why it sucked. No, I mean, just kidding. Just remind myself of those good feelings. And still, despite everything, it is absolutely true that, whether I liked it, I think Joe would say the same, no matter how much I may have said I didn't really care for it at the time, it is eons better than what we have today. I would happily take that storyline right now. Anyway, thank you very much for writing in. Like I said at the very beginning, what are the storylines you really love? Remember, they stick out in your mind. Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe, and thanks for listening.